There were 17 motion alerts on my phone before I even had coffee. That's unusual, because the only living thing in my house besides me is a turtle, and he doesn't exactly set off the security system. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wrapped in the blanket she'd bought last Christmas, swiping through the notifications like I was checking weather. 2:34 a.m. 2:37, 2:38, 3:01, movement in the kitchen, movement in the hallway, movement in the closet. I had installed the cameras 6 months ago after someone broke into our neighbor's garage and stole an entire deep freezer. Not the food, the actual freezer. People are weird, and weirder things happen in this town. But the cameras weren't meant for her. Not for my wife. They weren't meant to catch her sneaking someone in through the back door at 3:17 a.m. or see her giggling while stepping over my work boots like she lived in a sitcom, or watching her kiss a man in our living room, the same spot where we hosted my mother's birthday 3 weeks ago. I watched the footage without blinking. I didn't feel anger, or heartbreak, or even shock. Just stillness. The kind that comes right before a storm hits, when the birds vanish and the world pretends everything's fine for just one more minute. At 3:24 a.m., the man looked directly into the camera, dead into the lens, and smiled. I paused the video and zoomed in. He wasn't someone I recognized. He wasn't someone from work. He wasn't one of her art friends who always smelled like eucalyptus and drank oat milk out of mason jars. This guy had purpose in his eyes, like he wanted me to see, and he left something behind. When I finally walked downstairs, barefoot, in the same hoodie I'd worn for 3 days, I noticed the envelope taped to the inside of the fridge. It just said, "You had your chance. Now it's mine." Written in blocky red marker. Like a child. Or a psychopath. That's when it clicked. She wasn't just leaving. She was erasing me. And I wasn't going to let that happen. Not quietly. Not this time. The day after I found the envelope on the fridge, I did something I'm not proud of, though I'd be lying if I said I regret it. I logged into her email. She never changed her passwords. That was always her thing. If someone wants to steal my Spotify playlist that bad, let him, she'd joke. But I wasn't after playlists. I was after answers. And when I typed in her usual combination, her childhood dog's name plus a random number, it still worked. What I found wasn't explosive. Not right away. It was worse. It was calculated. There were receipts, car rentals, reservations under different names, files labeled travel itineraries, drop points, and one chilling folder named emergency scripts. I opened it. Inside were drafts of text messages, like, "I don't feel safe around you anymore. Please don't make me call the police. You're scaring me." It was like she was pre-writing a narrative, setting a trap I hadn't even realized I was standing in the middle of. That part really broke me, more than the guy in the camera. She wasn't just leaving me. She was preparing to destroy me in case I didn't accept it quietly. And I would have, honestly. I would have let her go. No begging, no shouting, just clean silence. But now I was watching her build a storyline where I was the villain, the unstable husband, the threat, a man the police would believe to be dangerous because he once put a hole in a garage wall when he found out his dad died. And yes, she recorded that too. That video was also in the folder, labeled simply, "Useful." It made me sick. I slammed the laptop shut, almost cracking the screen. My heart wasn't racing, it was withdrawing. You know that feeling when you've been hit emotionally so hard you feel it in your stomach? I couldn't even cry. Just sat there on the floor next to the cat's water bowl, watching the ice cube melt in the filtered tray. I wasn't mad she left. I was mad she built an exit plan that involved framing me as dangerous. Who does that? And then, around 11 p.m. that same night, the motion detector buzzed again. But it wasn't the hallway. It was the backyard. I watched the live feed on my phone, hand trembling slightly. A figure in a coat, pacing near the shed. The camera's night vision picked up something shiny, something metallic. Then the figure stopped pacing, turned to face the lens, and gave a thumbs up. No smile this time. Just that silent, terrifying gesture. Like he was saying, everything's going according to plan. I didn't sleep that night. And in the morning, the shed door was left open. Inside was something new. Her second phone. The one I was never supposed to find. I didn't touch it at first. I just stood in the doorway of the shed, staring down at the burner phone resting on top of a folded flannel shirt. My flannel shirt, the one that went missing 2 months ago. There was no dust on the phone. No smudges. It had been placed there recently, and deliberately. That much was clear. And though I had no idea how it got there, I knew with everything in me that it was meant for me to find. I picked it up. It was cold, dead battery. I brought it inside, plugged it into the outlet near the coffee machine, the same one she always used because the angle feels cozy there, and waited. When the screen lit up, it didn't ask for a passcode. No fingerprint. Just booted straight into a blank, factory reset home screen, until the messages started rolling in. No contact names. No timestamps. Just message after message flooding in like the phone had been waiting to reconnect with something. I read the first one, and my heart went hollow. He'll panic once he finds this. Watch his routine. Document everything. The next one hit harder. Don't confront. Gaslight. Make him feel like the paranoid one. And another. Did he check the attic yet? The documents should be gone by now. I stood there in the middle of my own kitchen, phone in one hand, my other hand gripping the countertop like it was the only thing keeping me from falling off the planet. These weren't messages from her to someone else. These were messages about me, a coordinated, tactical dissection of my sanity. Someone had been feeding her instructions. Or maybe it was the other way around. There were no contact names, but one message made my blood freeze. Tell Merrick not to worry. He doesn't suspect a thing. No one call me Merrick. That was my birth name, a name I hadn't used since I legally changed it 15 years ago to something more American sounding. Junie knew it, of course, but no one else in our lives did. Not even my coworkers. And this phone, this second phone she never mentioned, was using my original name like it was just common knowledge. Casual. Intentional. That's when I realized something even worse. This wasn't just her leaving me. This wasn't even her cheating. This was something organized. Premeditated. It had layers. Strategy. Roles. It wasn't emotional. It was clinical. Cold. Like a project. Like I had been selected. I shut the phone off and stuffed it into a sock drawer beneath a pile of receipts I'd been meaning to sort for 2 years. Then I checked the attic. It hadn't even occurred to me until I read that message, but we did have a crawl space above the hallway closet. I'd only been up there once, when we first moved in, to toss an old lamp we didn't want to throw away. I grabbed the stepladder, turned on the hallway light, and climbed up. There wasn't much. Insulation, a few boxes, dust. But one thing stood out immediately. A flat cardboard envelope with my name written across the front in black Sharpie. Not Merrick. Just my current name. It was as if they were leaving breadcrumbs for both versions of me. Inside the envelope was a single Polaroid photo. It showed me standing outside our house, wearing the same hoodie I had on right now. And in the background of the photo, through the living room window, Junie was sitting on the couch, smiling. Only, that couch had been thrown out last year. I dropped the photo. It landed face down on the attic floor as my brain scrambled to understand when it had been taken. Who took it? Why I didn't remember posing for it? And why the woman in the background was smiling like the photo was just the beginning of something. Something bigger. Something I still hadn't seen. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. I called in sick, though I barely said a word during the call. My manager didn't push. I think I mumbled something about a family emergency, which was technically true, just not the kind that comes with casseroles or sympathy cards. After hanging up, I sat in the kitchen in absolute silence, the second phone back in my hand, screen dark but charged. I hadn't turned it on again. I was afraid of what more it might tell me. But the real trouble started when I opened her laptop. It had been sitting on the dining table, exactly where she left it the night she vanished. The screen was closed, battery probably dead, but I plugged it in anyway. The same sticker was still on the cover, a faded raccoon holding a slice of pizza, one of those quirky Etsy things she used to be obsessed with before all of this. When it finally powered on, I was surprised it didn't ask for a password. There were only a few folders on the desktop. Most of them were related to her freelance art business. Invoices, sketches, some half-finished logos. I clicked through them, scanning quickly. Nothing strange. Nothing personal. But then I noticed the email app was still open in the background. Gmail. Her account. There were no new messages, but one unsent draft sat quietly at the top of her inbox. The subject line was blank, and so was the recipient field. The message had been started, but never finished. Or maybe it had, and just wasn't meant to be sent. Either way, it was waiting. I clicked it open, and I wish I hadn't. It read, "He doesn't remember. He thinks this is the first time. But it's not. It never is. He always forgets around the 4th month, and that's when the patterns reset. This time I stayed longer than I should have. Got too comfortable. I let him get close. He thinks we've been married 6 years. He doesn't even realize he's said that exact phrase in every cycle. 6 years. Not 5. Not 7. Always 6. I stopped breathing for a few seconds. Blinked. Read it again. And again. And it only got worse the more I tried to make sense of it. What the hell did cycles mean? Patterns? Forget what. We weren't living in a simulation. We weren't brainwashed. I wasn't I? She continued. The photos will confuse him. They always do. He tries to trace them back, match them to moments that never happened. It's his way of grounding himself. I used to feel bad about that. I used to think maybe I should tell him. But the moment I do, it collapses. Every time. And I'm tired of starting over. So this time, I'm just leaving. And at the very end, as if she had written it in a different mood entirely, calmer, almost pitying, he's going to look for me. But it won't matter. He's already being watched. I stared at the screen for so long the laptop went into sleep mode. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Couldn't. My brain was stuck on a loop, trying to make sense of something that was written in plain English, but made no logical sense at all. What did she mean I always forget? Was this some elaborate metaphor? A breakup letter written in riddles? Or was it worse, something I wasn't even capable of understanding because it was true? And then, like clockwork, the motion alert on my phone buzzed. I didn't check it right away. I was scared to. The last time I did, I saw someone smiling into the lens. What was next? Someone breaking in? Taking something else? But it wasn't the hallway. It wasn't the backyard. It was the front porch. When I finally opened the live feed, I saw a package. No delivery truck. No footsteps. No shadow. Just the box. Small. Black. No label. I opened the door, heart pounding in my throat, looked both ways down the street. No one. I grabbed the box, brought it inside, set it on the table next to her laptop, the one that now felt radioactive. There was no tape on the box. No seal. Just a tiny clasp, like a jewelry box. Inside, sitting perfectly centered on a bed of gray foam, was a single key. A car key. To a car I didn't own. At least, I didn't think I did. The key had a red plastic tag on it. No logo, no serial number, just the number 708, written in permanent marker, starting to smudge from age or maybe humidity. I turned it over in my hand for 10 minutes before I even thought about leaving the house. Part of me still hoped this was all some twisted scavenger hunt, a breakdown in slow motion. That I'd wake up on the floor, covered in old receipts and melted ice from the fridge, and realize none of it had happened. But everything kept moving forward. Every question was answered with another riddle. And now this key, this tiny, mundane object, was pushing me out of the last safe space I had left. I started by searching online. Storage unit 708 plus, key tag plus red. Nothing useful. Then I looked up local self-storage facilities, focusing on the ones within a 10-mile radius of the house. One of them stood out immediately. Northfield Cold Storage, an old warehouse that had been turned into units years ago, the kind of place with flickering fluorescent lights and front desk workers who don't ask questions. I called, asked, casually, if they had a Unit 708. The guy on the phone paused, asked me to hold. When he came back, he sounded different. More cautious. We do, he said slowly. But it's under a private listing. We can't give details unless you're on the access list. I almost hung up, but something in me snapped instead. I said, I have the key. There was a silence. Then, if you show up with it, we won't stop you. So I went. The drive took 23 minutes. I counted every one of them. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, not because I thought someone was following me, but because I felt like someone should be. Like all this attention I was giving to tiny details, all the spiral I was being pulled into, surely someone was watching it. Or directing it. The Northfield facility looked like a place time had forgotten. The chain-link fence out front leaned inward like it was tired of pretending to stand guard. The keypad at the gate beeped when I pressed the buzzer, and the voice on the speaker, the same guy, I think, told me, 3rd row, 2nd building, end unit. You'll see it. I drove in. The pavement was cracked. Grass poked through in places it shouldn't. Everything was too quiet, like someone had dialed down the ambient noise of the world. No birds. No cars. Just my tires crunching gravel as I pulled up to the unit marked 708. The key slid in perfectly. When I rolled up the door, the air that hit me smelled like dust, cardboard, and something older than that. It wasn't rot, not exactly. More like the scent of paper left in a locked room for decades. The air was dry, but heavy, like it was holding its breath. Inside were 6 boxes, all the same size, stacked neatly in a corner. And a chair. A single, wooden chair in the middle of the concrete floor, facing the entrance like someone had been sitting there. Or waiting. But it was the mirror behind it that stopped me cold. It was massive, a full-body mirror propped against the wall. And taped across the top of the mirror was a strip of paper with 2 words written in capital letters. Tell him. Not ask. Not show. Not explain. Just tell. Like someone expected an actor to rehearse lines. Or like someone was watching and waiting for the scene to finally be performed. I walked over to the boxes. Opened the first one. Inside were photos. Dozens. Hundreds. All of me. Not me and Junie. Not parties or weddings or anything you'd expect in a shared memory box. These were surveillance photos. Me at work. Me pumping gas. Me in line at the grocery store. Me standing on the porch staring at the sky like I'd forgotten why I came outside. One photo was a close-up of me sleeping. I didn't recognize the blanket I was under. The second box had cassette tapes. Not digital. Not USBs. Actual analog tapes labeled with dates and codes. Things like Cycle 5B and Post-Incident Debrief. I found a small player in the same box. Plugged in a tape. Hit play. Static. Then a voice. My voice. But I had no memory of ever saying the words. He thinks she left him. He's at stage 4. Predictable pattern. Rebuilding phase begins in approximately 3 days. Another tape. Do not allow direct confrontation. If he makes contact before stabilization, the cycle collapses. Repeat. Collapse is irreversible. I staggered back, breathing shallow, chest tight. I turned toward the mirror, half expecting someone to be standing behind me. No one. Just me. Staring at myself. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who was looking back. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even pretend. After leaving the storage unit, I drove around town for hours, circling highways I barely remembered, looping through neighborhoods I didn't recognize. I passed a gas station 3 times before I realized it used to be a diner back when I was in college. But wasn't that in another city? Another state? The longer I drove, the less sure I became of where I was, or had ever been. Eventually, I ended up back home. I don't even remember pulling into the driveway. I was just sitting there in my car with the engine off and the cassette tapes still rattling around in the passenger seat, like they were whispering something too quiet for me to hear. I left them there. Couldn't bring them inside. Not yet. My hands were shaking. Back in the house, I stood in the hallway and just stared at the attic for a long time, like it might blink or shift if I caught it off guard. I didn't climb up again. I couldn't. Not after what I found last time. Instead, I went into the guest room. The one she never used. The one with the closet full of boxes I hadn't unpacked in years. That's where I found the envelope. It was tucked behind a stack of old notebooks, beneath a box of mismatched cords and dead batteries. A plain white envelope, sealed with a piece of clear tape. My name was written on the front. Not Merrick, not a nickname, not a printed label. Just my handwriting, in blue ink, slightly smudged like I'd written it in a hurry. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a single page, dated 5 years ago. No greeting, no pleasantries, just a warning. If you're reading this, it means the fracture has happened early. You weren't supposed to wake up yet. That means they'll come looking sooner. Don't trust your house. Don't trust the mirrors. Don't trust her. You will feel like this is new. It's not. You've done this before. Over and over. You are the variable. They are the constant. Your instincts will betray you. Write everything down. Hide what matters. Burn this letter. It was signed Merrick, the name I haven't used since I was 21. I dropped the letter. Just dropped it on the floor like it was radioactive, like maybe if I put enough distance between me and the paper, reality would snap back into place. But it didn't. Nothing changed. The room still smelled like dust and lemon-scented wood polish, and I could still hear the hum of the refrigerator from down the hall. Except now it felt like that hum was mocking me. Like it had always been there, keeping rhythm while I ran in circles. I reread the letter 4 times. Tried to study the pen pressure. Compare the angles of the letters. But it was me. I had no doubt. The way I wrote my lowercase g's, the way I crossed my t's, all of it matched. It wasn't a forgery. It wasn't a trick. I wrote it. But I had no memory of ever doing so. Which meant one of 2 things. Either I was losing my mind in the most elegant and complex way imaginable, or there was something so much worse happening here, something I had willingly forgotten. I didn't burn the letter. I put it in the microwave, then unplugged the microwave. I don't know why. It felt safer. After that, I went into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror for what felt like hours. Not looking for anything in particular, just trying to see if there was something wrong in my eyes. Some defect, a crack, but I looked normal. I looked tired. My beard was uneven. My eyes were sunken, but I was still me, until I noticed the note stuck behind the mirror. It was wedged in the corner where the glass met the frame. Folded neatly, just barely visible. I pulled it out with tweezers from the drawer. Opened it slowly. More of that blocky handwriting. Not mine, but familiar. The same as the tag on the key. The same as the message on the fridge. Do not look for room 301. Do not follow her in. No matter what she says, you were never there. There was no room 301 in our house. There wasn't a room 301 anywhere near here. At least, that's what I thought. Until I checked her phone again. Buried deep in the calendar, hidden behind meaningless repeating events like take vitamins and stretch, was a single, non-repeating entry, set to go off 3 days from now. Room 301. Reacquisition window opens, 3 a.m. The location field had coordinates. They pointed to a motel, one town over, the kind that rents rooms by the hour, and I swear I've never been there in my life. But the thing is, the street it's on? It's named after my mother's maiden name, and now I don't know if that's a coincidence, or a breadcrumb I left for myself. The motel was uglier than I expected. Even with everything I knew, even with the coordinates burning a hole in my head like a brand, I still pictured something different. Something dramatic. Gothic. Abandoned, maybe. Instead, it was just sad. Beige walls. Dusty parking lot. 2 vending machines outside the office, both broken. A flickering sign with half the letters burned out, leaving only the glowing word MOT. Maybe it once meant motel. Maybe now it meant something else. There was no one at the front desk. Just a bell. I didn't touch it at first. I just stood there, listening. The lobby smelled like old soap and paper money. A TV in the corner was playing static. Not news. Not cartoons. Just actual static, as if someone had intentionally tuned it to nothing and left it there. I rang the bell. A man came out from the back room. Late 50s, maybe 60s. Thick glasses. Gray stubble. He looked at me the way you look at a dog that might bite. Not scared, just tired of being surprised. He didn't ask for my name. Didn't ask how many nights I wanted to stay. He just turned around, opened a drawer, and pulled out a key. Room 301. Attached to a plastic tag. No logo. No branding. You're late, he said without inflection. I didn't make a reservation, I replied. He blinked slowly. You did. Just not recently. I didn't answer. I took the key. Walked out of the lobby in silence, down the row of rooms. 101, 102, 103. The numbers went on and on, across 2 buildings. Then the stairs. Second floor. 201 through 217. Then another staircase at the far end, tucked behind a broken ice machine, like an afterthought. The third floor had no signage. No numbers on the walls. No arrows. No lights. But when I reached the end of the hallway, past a locked supply closet and a door marked maintenance, I saw it. A steel door. No window. No peephole. Just the number 301 etched directly into the metal like it had been scratched in with a knife. The key worked. Of course it did. The door opened with a slow, deliberate creak, and I swear, before I even saw what was inside, I smelled her perfume. Not the kind she wore out in public. Not the citrusy, modern one she used on date nights. No, this was the scent she wore when she didn't want to be remembered. A faded floral, something almost synthetic. The scent of misdirection. Of erasure. The room was not what I expected. Not at all. No bed. No TV. No carpet. Just 4 white walls, floor-to-ceiling mirrors on 3 sides, and a single table in the center of the room with a chair on either side. On the table sat a small black box. Velvet. Closed. There was no window. No ventilation. No sound. Just me and my reflection, or reflections, plural, all staring back at me from impossible angles. I sat down. Because of course I did. Because whoever set this up knew exactly what I'd do. I opened the box. Inside was a stack of Polaroids and a small audio recorder. I picked up the photos first. At first, I thought they were blank. But then the light caught them just right, and I saw they were infrared, taken in the dark, high contrast, eerie. One showed me lying in bed, curled on my side, clutching a pillow. Another showed me walking into a grocery store. Another, one I dropped immediately, showed me standing in this very room, staring at the box I was now holding. I hadn't been here before. I was sure of it. Except, the timestamp on the photo said otherwise. It was dated 2 weeks ago. I pressed play on the audio recorder. Static. Then my own voice. Not a recording from the tapes. Not from the storage unit. This was different. Older. Slower. Like me, but drained of hope. If you're hearing this, it means she got away again. And you're going to try to find her. You always do. But listen to me, and listen hard. She's not running from you. She's leading you. This isn't about forgetting. It's about what you're refusing to remember. The voice paused. I waited, breath shallow. Then it said something that made my entire body go cold. Check your arm. I dropped the recorder. Stared at my left forearm. Nothing. Just hair and skin. Then I turned it over, and saw a faint line, just below the wrist. A scar I didn't recognize. No, not a scar. A number. Tiny. Almost invisible. Laser etched into the skin. Cycle 8A/authority level. Observer/memory lock. Active. I backed away from the table, heart jackhammering. Stumbled into the wall, nearly knocking over the mirror. My reflection wobbled and shimmered like water, like reality itself was loosening. Then the light above me flickered, and a voice came through a hidden speaker in the ceiling. Not hers. Not mine. Not anyone I recognized. It said, "Welcome back, Merrick. Observation complete. Re-entry window closing in T-90 minutes. Final decision pending. Please remain seated." I wasn't Merrick anymore. I wasn't even sure I was real. But I still had one part left to play. And someone, maybe everyone, was waiting to see what I'd choose. I didn't sit. Not right away. Not when the voice told me to. My instincts screamed to obey, to fall into the pattern again. Take the seat. Play the part. Let the next sequence unfold just like the last, and the one before that, and the dozens I couldn't even remember. But I didn't. I stayed standing, heart pounding, staring into the mirror that now shimmered like a portal about to open. We're close. 90 minutes, the voice had said. A countdown. A decision. But what decision? Go back. Forget again? Chase her? Watch the tapes? Track the signals? Try to outthink the pattern? What if the real choice wasn't between truth or illusion? What if it was between motion and stillness? I looked down at the recorder still sitting on the table. I pressed play again, skipping forward, fast-forwarding through the static and paranoia and repetition, until I hit something different. My voice again, but quieter, warmer. There's a version of you that doesn't need to win, doesn't need to solve it. He just lets go. He steps out of the maze. He plants tomatoes in a backyard and watches them grow, even if he doesn't remember planting the seeds. That version doesn't care who set the loop. He cares that the sun comes up, and that the coffee tastes good, and that someone he loves is laughing in the other room. My knees nearly buckled. I sat. Not because the voice told me to, but because I wanted to. The room felt different after that. The light above me softened. The mirrors didn't seem so predatory anymore. They just reflected what was there. A man in a hoodie, tired eyes, holding onto the edges of himself like they might fray. But also calm. Still. Awake. The speaker clicked back on. A final message. Observer has broken sequence. External clearance granted. Loop will dissolve in 3, 2, and then, nothing. No static. No light. Just quiet. And warmth. I woke up 2 days later in a hospital bed. No handcuffs. No monitors. No men in black coats or agents pretending to be therapists. Just a nurse with a bored expression checking my vitals. She told me I'd been brought in after collapsing near a motel stairwell. No ID. Just a note in my pocket that read, in handwriting they said matched mine. Do not restart. Let him live this one. The doctor said I was healthy. Just dehydrated. Exhausted. Maybe a psychotic break. Maybe just extreme stress. They asked if I wanted to see someone. I said maybe later. I went home. The house was dusty. The cat had knocked over 2 plants. But everything was real. Quiet. Still. I opened the windows. Let in the air. I threw out the burner phone, the tapes, the photos, all of it. If they were real, they'll find me again. If they weren't, I'm done letting ghosts decorate my life. I planted tomatoes. I started writing again. Not letters to myself, not warnings or riddles. Just stories. 1 page a day. Little fictions that don't hurt to remember. I don't know where Junie is. Maybe she was never real. Maybe she was, and she broke too. If she's out there, I hope she finds her way out too. Last night I had a dream. Nothing terrifying. No watchers, no loops. Just a simple dream. I was walking along a quiet road, sunset glowing behind me, and someone was walking next to me. Not speaking. Just there. I didn't ask who they were. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't need to know.